Hello, and welcome to the first episode of Goblins in Hyperspace. My name is Holly.
And my name is Ennio.
And in this episode we discuss geek culture, when we became aware of it, and the importance it's had in our lives.
Spoiler warning for the following media: Game of Thrones, Battlestar Galactica, Avatar The Last Airbender, Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, BBC's Sherlock, Fleabag, Harry Potter, Batman and Robin, The Last Airbender movie, Queer Eye, Black Sails, Lucifer, Major Crimes, and Independence Day.
Are you a geek, Holly? I ask while your mouth is full of liquid.
Wow. Tea is what I was drinking, by the way. I feel like I need to give context to the liquid.
Tea.
And yes, to answer your question, born and bred from the womb to the grave.
Hey, that would be a great science fiction TV show. From the womb to the grave.
Would you include the noise I made in between?
Maybe. No, that's just when the characters are in the suspense moment. Was like when they are in a creaky house and someone says like, "Do you hear that?"
Spot on, yeah.
So this podcast, it's gonna be geeky. We're gonna talk about geek stuff.
Yeah.
What is geek to you?
To me.
You specifically, categorically, a Holly original thought and production.
What does it mean for me to be a geek?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's like enjoying something, I guess, is probably like the most default thing that I think of. Enjoying something to the extreme of wanting to know everything about it.
And wear the shirt and buy the mug.
Exactly. Like sometimes I find a lot of joy. Like I went to see a play in London last year, and I saw it, and it's one of my favorite. It's a Shakespeare play, and Gwendolyn Christie was in it as well. So you know
that was your main.
That's the reason
drive.
that I was like, oh, absolutely. That's the reason I went there, and then it's like the reason I became obsessed because it's one of my favorite. It's A Midsummer Night's Dream, which is amazing.
How close were you to Brienne of Tarth? Words.
Oh no.
Yeah, how close were you to Brienne of Tarth?
I was incredibly close to Gwendolyn. She has a name, and do you know how I know that? Because I became obsessed with her.
Because you're a Gwendolyn geek, geekdolin.
A Gwendolyn.
A Gwendolyn.
Oh dear.
Please don't ever listen to this podcast, Gwendolyn Christie.
Oh God, no, right? But yeah, exactly that. It's after the shambles of Game of Thrones as a whole show, but especially like season 8. It reminded me though that I really loved Brienne of Tarth, and then again the interest that it sparks. Like you want to be the person that knows everything about this thing because you feel so passionate, and you want other people to know, you want other people to enjoy, and I think that's the thing.
A geeking out.
Yeah, I really enjoy that.
To me, being a geek is...
Oh, I didn't ask.
Oh,
you.
okay. I'm so sorry. Thank you so much for coming to this podcast. To me, being a geek is also being obsessed with something.
Yeah. And
maybe this is a very, male point of view thing, but it's also being obsessed with something that someone else isn't.
So a little hipstery aspect to that.
Little hipstery, but for me, it's this rejection of the norm that started with high school, where people were obsessed with like going to parties and I don't know, whatever trashy TV show that was popular at the moment. For me, it was just like, yeah, but I just want to play Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah.
And pretend that I'm a magician.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly. That's
wow,
the
I
days.
would not have been your friend. Let's just say.
Hey, a lot of people wanted to be my friend, and I didn't want to be friends with a lot of people, and my mom was very concerned about that.
Oh no, I don't like anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. No, yeah, I probably said that quite a few times. I did. For me, it's just I had like one friend in high school, like literally one friend, and it was a girl friend, which obviously led to the very basic thing of like, oh, you're dating, which is dumb because we were just like two geeks playing, PlayStation games and card games and board games and never Dungeons and Dragons. It wasn't big in South America. Spoiler alert, I'm an immigrant.
Just thought I'd slip
Well,
that
to be
one
fair,
in.
it depends where you're listening to this. If you're
That's
listening back in Venezuela, then I suppose I'm not an immigrant. Holly is.
Oh damn!
Yeah.
I feel as a white woman,
White.
I feel very uncomfortable with the thought of that title on me. I don't know how I must feel for
Oh no, let's derail the conversation for the white woman.
No, I'm joking, obviously.
We're both joking. We might have had a sip of alcohol.
Might have.
Might have.
Definitely.
So I think, yeah, it was very much like a rejection of what other people considered normal and acceptable, which I guess, I was a teen a long time ago.
Damn.
When did I stop being a teen? I stopped being a teen when I turned 20, which would have been 2009. So it's been about 12 to 13 years since I haven't been a teen.
I had very wide eyes then because obviously I'm not that far behind you. And then just like bring my own age into question. Yeah. Oh, shit.
Yeah. It'll be 10 years since being a teen for you at the end of this year.
Oh, my God. Okay.
That's fine. Yeah, move on. Mortality, existential dread, gone. So, defining the word geek, if you were to look online, Wikipedia has it as this term that became popular in the 19th century in America. And then if you look further into it, it started as apparently a performer in circus acts that would just sometimes do something gross or like shocking and freaky, which apparently the most common thing was biting off the head of a live chicken. I would like to see that still happen now, and the field day that some animal rights groups would have.
Oh my God.
They would go crazy.
Yeah.
I would go crazy. I would be like, this is not a safe environment. I'm going to leave the circus right now.
Well, have you? Yeah. Well, I didn't know any of that. What you just said either. The biting the head off a live chicken. That's so full.
I only found this out about 3-4 years ago when someone recommended a book called Geek Love by Catherine Dunn, if I'm not mistaken. And it's set in the 70s, I think, in the 60s, something like that. And obviously, they describe it like, oh, and now welcome to the stage or whatever, the geek. And I'm like, oh, he's gonna tell some jokes.
he's a stand-up comedian.
He just like starts to decapitate chicken.
Oh wow.
Teeth.
I mean that's how I would define being a geek as a teenager. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was eye-opening for me because I'm like, oh, so this is why people used to hate being called a nerd, a geek.
Yeah.
Because I feel like even though by the time that I came across the term in my youth, it was still not cool.
No way. No.
Because I feel like in the larger, zeitgeist of our generation, it was kind of like the Marvel movies that started making it cool, I think.
Yeah. At least from what I can see. Like, people embrace it a lot more now. Like, everyone's a little bit geeky about something like that. Yeah. And they do. And I don't know whether it's a great thing or not. As a fully fledged geek of many years who had to go through the trauma in high school.
I kind of agree with you. Sometimes I have to struggle with that because it's not to call anyone out, but sometimes when all people know is just Marvel movies, I'm like, there is just so many other things.
And I make a mistake, and I don't know if you do it, but I make a mistake thinking that they are genuinely geeky in the same way that I am. So I want to tell them things that I know about this thing that they're interested in, like this Marvel movie, and then I slip into mentioning like the graphic novels or something, and you could see this moment where like no, like their eyes like could shut down. It's like, no, I don't want to know about that.
Yeah, if it's not in a movie theater that I can go with my friends, tweet about, Facebook about, and take a picture about, I don't want to hear it. Which is, I think, it's not about like who is a real geek or isn't, but I do feel like the origins of this, let's call it this culture, were very much like you're in your room alone enjoying comic books, like you said, graphic novels, the people who would get together to this day to play Dungeons and Dragons. It is the kind of thing that is so ingrained in our culture. Like, think about it. The first geeks were people who would randomly be like, oh, thunder just struck down that stone. That was Thor. Sure. He has a hammer. Cool. Like, everyone else just like curing meat and like preparing hides for the winter.
That's a god. That was a god, guys.
That wind god, that earth god, that
God.
stone
That's
god.
hammer god.
By the way, the stone and the wind, they're dating, and the thunder, it's their child.
I mean, to be fair, it is a good story.
That does sound like a good story. I hate when I keep mocking storylines like that, and you keep telling me that.
It's because my brain instantly, like, half of my brain is nerdy interest, and the other half of it is what can make money. And I know that even if the storyline sounds a bit shit, I'm like, people would be interested in that.
As long as Stone God has a good body, and Wind God can't decide between Stone God and Tree God, I think Tree God is the real pairing, the real ship. And then there will be like 5 people who will be like, actually, I ship Wind God with Leaf God. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, they've had like 2 scenes together in like the whole thing, but they.
Which, going back to the point you said earlier about like when people are a bit more face value about geekiness, that's something that to this day is still very prevalent in social media. Shipping wars are like a thing.
Oh, a big thing. Huge.
Like, that's like, you cannot just deny that aspect of the geek culture.
I absolutely love it as well. I'm a huge, like, when it comes to nerdiness and geekiness in general, one of my favorite things in any TV show or book I read is the relationships. Like, characters are what makes a show to me. Like, not plot comes second, but usually it's very hard. You can get plot driven shows and you can get character driven shows, and then you can get really, really, really good shows that have really good plot and really good characters, and they're interwoven enough. Like Battlestar Galactica, just thought I'd slip that one in,
not
like,
because we just recorded an episode about it.
No, nothing at all. Like, it's not fresh in my mind at all. But they are like the stronger shows, because like I'd say character driven shows are more like a soap opera type show. That's the plot there is just for the drama of the characters. And then like plot driven shows would be like CSI Miami. I don't know.
Right. Like, which you also love because you love detective shows.
I do.
You're not being mean to either.
Neither. No, I mean, soap opera is usually like probably where I don't go, because I don't like drama for the sake of drama, And I feel like that's what they are.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I think conflict needs a reason.
Yeah.
And I think that I might be mistaken in this. This is my opinion, but I think that this is the only thing I'm not enjoying at the moment about geek culture. Sometimes I feel like people are like, oh, I want this show where there is a huge amount of explosions, and I'm just going to write characters around those explosions.
Yeah.
And I don't enjoy that. This is why I think the Star Trek movies were very visually appealing.
Oh, they're gorgeous, yeah.
But there is no element that I can think back and just be like, oh, that moment, remember that moment when that moment happened because that moment? And no, it's just always like whoosh and push and whatever.
It's definitely like almost like a Michael Bay type of aspect to it with, explosions.
Yeah. Which, I'm a terribly basic man. I do love my explosions and my pew-pew.
Yeah.
But you have to give it more. You have to spread out the explosions in between Maria being unable to decide between Laura and Justine.
Justine.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't like that name.
Well,
she shouldn't go with her.
She is the villainess, but no one knows yet. But she'll have a redemption arc, and so it will be the actual, one true pairing.
I love that.
I love that. Like how in Avatar it should have been Zuko and Katara.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, but
that's just the truth.
So when you were a child, what was like the first geeky thing you can remember being like super into?
Oh, absolutely easy. I know it. Like it was Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I was 8 years old, and the only reason I started watching it is because I remember a girl came into class saying that her mother let her watch it, and I knew my mother was watching it, and I was like, how the hell is Katie Hitchens allowed to watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
Yeah,
so I went home.
Katie Hitchens.
So I went home to my mother and cried and said, Katie Hitchens is allowed to watch Buffy. So I watched it, and it was probably, I'd say, like, 1998. Yeah. And in that same time would be obviously when Charmed came out as well. So it was them two at like the same time I would watch at like 8 years old, 8 years old.
I was going to say, for me, if it was a TV show, for me, it's probably Charmed.
Yeah, so good though.
Which was hilarious how my parents, well, my mom, I think my dad was not as uptight as her. And my mom didn't like that I was watching what she considered adult TV shows.
Yeah.
Not that she could stop me, because I've always been a stubborn person. She didn't like that I was watching adult TV shows, but she would let me watch like Animal Planet and Discovery Channel, where a lion is gonna rip a zebra to like shreds. Like, that's fine.
That's totally fine. Yeah,
For an 8-year-old, that's okay.
nature. That is. Like, yeah.
Which I don't know if you've noticed, but now if you see like a animal documentary, they very rarely show like the gore.
Yeah.
Which is, there's just a little fun fact there in the middle of the episode about something completely different.
I don't know why. I can't give you the answer, and I can't give you much else either.
I think it's because, they don't want children to see that.
But it's human nature, you know?
Well, I mean...
But not human nature, just nature, actually.
Exactly, it's nature. I think besides Charm as a TV show, I was obsessed with games. Like, one of my favorite games, well, my first ever games was Pokemon, obviously.
Yes.
I am a child of that generation. And if I were to like tap into my more creative side, the first game that ever imprinted on me as a geek was Final Fantasy Tactics. This is just a very turn-based game, but the story, it's like Game of Thrones, but on drugs.
Oh, wow.
Like on good drugs.
Solid drugs.
Because it was, how Game of Thrones is essentially a ripoff of the War of the Roses in the UK.
Yes, yeah.
Final Fantasy Tactics was similar. It's essentially, again, two noble houses. Who's going to be king? There's this conflict about that. And it's all about all of these players. Like, you never actually spend any time with let's say the prospectful kings. It's always the random players that are doing all of these things in the behind the scenes that matter.
Yeah.
And I remember that I was so obsessed with that game. I played it 4 times in a row. Like finish, restart, finish, restart, finish.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard of it. I've heard of Final Fantasy, obviously, and I used to play like...
Even among people who play Final Fantasy, it's not that popular.
It's not cool amongst geeks, which tells you something.
I think it's because it had this very sour storyline.
Oh.
There's a lot of people who don't get a happy ending, who by normal modern day standards had extreme trauma thrusted upon them. And but I feel like that's what made it great, though. It
sounds like a good TV show. Like that's just you talking there. I was like, well, that's pretty much the element of any show I like.
Yeah.
The trauma and stuff.
It's life. Life is not supposed to be clean and easy. I don't like... That is the one thing that I think about modern geekiness that I don't particularly love, is how everything wraps up in this perfect, neat way.
Yeah.
Like, even when someone dies, it's kind of like, it's for this, like, insane sacrifice, or like, it's almost like, how can you even resent them for dying because they saved you? And it just erases emotions, in my opinion.
Is that like... I mean, I don't know if you watched
Avengers?
Marvel. Yeah. Obviously, when you said that, I was like, well, we're obviously talking about the inevitable ending of that was obviously either Tony Stark was going to die or Captain America was going to die.
I know that they received a lot of love from the fans. I personally didn't love either of the films, because the ending of the first film with everyone disintegrating means nothing.
No, as well, I think, like, in your heart of hearts, that something's going to happen to change that, especially since...
There were 2 movies approved.
Yeah, I was going to say, especially if you consider that in the universe, we knew that 2 people were going to continue.
Yeah.
It does negate the emotion from it. It makes you feel safe, which a film like that shouldn't. It should make you feel very... like worried about characters. I think, like, at least it reminds me a bit of, I've always said this about, and I know it seems like a very random show, but Sherlock, as in like the BBC show adaptation.
Watermelon Cumberbatch.
Yes, there you go, him. He dies as in the books in one of the things, and there's a scene where John is at the very end of the season, and it really pisses me off that he didn't do this, because I just think it would have been so much better. And he's at his grave, at Sherlock's grave, all like, oh, God, you're dead, it's sad, isn't it? And then the camera pans away, and it pans to Sherlock just standing there looking on, and I'm thinking, you should just pan away to nothing. because then the even though the people know how the story of Sherlock, because if you know Sherlock, you know that he comes back. Like that's the concept. But to pan away to Sherlock just standing there completely alive, it's like, oh yeah, he's fine. I feel great now for the next season because I know he's coming back. You should have.
Yeah, it's
to nothing.
It's pandering to fan service.
Yeah.
And this is something that I always discuss with people. I don't hate fan service. I love fan service. But if you're gonna do it, there's only two ways about it, in my opinion. I'm gonna say that a lot. You either pepper it very lightly and carefully.
Yeah.
Or it's so ridiculous that the show is all about fan service. And you cannot wait to see how they're going to top the most ridiculous thing that they did last season.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. It's a kind of thing where like you need to keep expectation.
Yeah.
But not hand it out so freely.
Especially since like in that situation, you knew the story, so you didn't need to be, like, it didn't need to be shown to you. You knew that, like, at that point the show had been, renewed for another season, so you knew he was coming back. You know that he comes back in the novel.
Yeah,
so
if a show called Sherlock gets another season,
you're pretty like, he's coming back, and I think it would have made fans a little bit more like, if it panned away to nothing, they would have had that moment of their expectations being like, there he is, and him not being there, and they would have been like, what? And then the show would have ended.
When everyone was obsessed with Sherlock, like on Tumblr and things, I think they still are, but in the heyday, I was very into Moriarty.
Oh, because he's hot.
Oh, he's so sexy.
What's
his name? Andrew Scott.
Yeah.
Who, do you know? I haven't watched season 2 of Fleabag, which I know he's a big part of.
Yes, the priest.
So as an adult, and let's define adulthood as your 20s, which are about to end, and mine have.
Wow, thanks for that reminder. It's like going to end now. They're done. How do you feel?
What has been the biggest elements of geek culture in your 20s? Go.
As in, like, the thing that defined like the geekiness that defined it. Like, like a show or
whatever you feel like is important. Like, geekiness is very different for a lot of people. Sometimes it's shows, sometimes it's games, sometimes it's books.
Okay, now don't get a big head or anything, but I'd probably say would probably say meeting you.
Aww.
No.
That's so adorable and understandable.
Yeah, well, you did introduce me to two different, like, things. One being, not introduce me, but, like, our friendship at this point wasn't defined yet. And then you said I should watch Battlestar Galactica. And I was like...
a religion on its own.
Yeah, exactly. And that definitely defined my 20s. And then, obviously, The Lies of Locke Lamora, you told me to read. And that was two separate, like, geeky paths that I took in my 20s.
They're very different, that is true.
Yeah, like literally just completely different. And you showed me both of them.
And one is book form and the other one is TV form. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. I would definitely say that, yeah, for me, Locke Lamora was very much. And for me, Locke Lamora is a good definition of my 20s because the way that I came to that book and that book series was very me. I was living in Munich at the time. And this friend of a friend was visiting, and he had bought the first book and said that he didn't like it.
Oh, wow.
And just left it there. And I was like, oh, you like fantasy, right?
Can you say, you have it. Go on, you have this masterpiece.
I mean, yes, but on the other hand, can you imagine just not finding out?
I know.
It's the kind of thing where I'm always thinking, how many amazing stories are out there that I don't know because the circumstances because I hate blurbs.
Yeah.
I hate this. In a universe engulfed by darkness, a light will shine. It's like, what does that tell me? Nothing.
Yeah, and it doesn't always attract me to it either. No. It can be very off-putting.
No, exactly. And so I remember that the book, very unassuming cover, just normal, whatever. And I picked it up and I started reading, and I was obsessed. I've been obsessed since. It's one of the best fantasy books, categorically, hands down. Mama Boots' house down, Paris is burning.
Wow. And I agree. Anyway, obviously. Definitely. And actually, it's quite nice to know. I've been recommended it since you recommended it to me. I've been recommended it twice by other people when I was like in work. They go, I got a book that I think you'd like. And you're sitting there and you have a gut feeling you might know what the book is and you don't know why. And they're like, you might not have heard of it, but it's by a man called Scott Lynch. And I'm like, hey, I know what you're going to tell me.
It's amazing, and I would love to discuss it in another episode if we know that it's actually continuing, because as of the recording of this episode, it's been like 5 years since the last book?
Ridiculous. I mean, I finished the 3 in a short space of time.
Yeah, because you didn't have to wait like me.
Exactly. I didn't have to go through the pain, but now I am. I've been going through the pain for a couple of years.
You've earned it, yeah. So it's one of those things where, like, unlike other books where people say, so here's this book, it's 500 pages, and the sequel is already in the works, and it's going to be 700 pages, and you're like, listen, you haven't sold me this yet. Don't tell me that there's an even larger one coming, because I don't love this yet. So if I don't love something, you telling me that there is a bigger one coming, it's a threat. It's not a surprise.
Yeah. So like, I don't know if I can get through that. Thank you.
Whereas with Dr. Mora, the fact that he said ages ago, because he keeps giving us these little updates every so often, and he says something like, "Oh, this is going to be the largest one yet," and I'm like, "Yes, thank you, because we've waited."
Yeah, I feel like that's a reward, like for me, and I've only been waiting for 3 years, and I feel like it's a reward for the time that I've put into it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What I loved about it is that it had so much culture in it. If you know what I mean. Like, they didn't just feel like, sometimes I just feel like whenever there is a medieval-ish setting, it's always like, and I am a knight and I have a bit of money, and I'm a peasant and I have no money, and I am a king and I have all the money. That's it. That's all the culture you're getting. That's all the differentiation between the classes that you're getting.
Yeah.
Whereas Locklamore had this rich universe. But yeah, I would completely agree that was probably one of the biggest things in my 20s. Even though Game of Thrones was happening and Harry Potter was happening. But for me, as a young adult, Harry Potter ending with Voldemort dying was a disappointment.
Yeah.
As we've discussed when we discussed Avatar. Because it was this blah thing. Also, Game of Thrones as well hasn't ended. He doesn't seem to have any inclination to end it.
Which is now, I think, as well, that the show has finished, and it finished to generally unhappy responses. I feel like the fact that we probably, he's not going to finish. Like he has no intention to. So it's like there's this ending that isn't going to be complete in the original format, and that is unsatisfying in the adaptation format. So that's all you have is that kind of naff end. It's quite a disappointment for fans.
Talking about disappointments, what would you say are the worst expressions of geek culture that you've ever seen? Again, it can be anything: books, TV shows, films, anything, games.
Okay, now I don't think it's the worst.
Okay.
But I know, like, worldwide, it's probably renowned for being the worst, and it's one of my favorite films. And I'd probably say, like, is it okay to be a film as well, isn't it? Like,
yeah. It can be anything.
Batman and Robin in the 90s, as in with George Clooney, and now to me, as somebody who I quite like.
That's the one with Uma Thurman, right?
Yes.
I think that's the kind of camp that is just good.
Right. Okay. Now this is the reason why I love it, because to me, Batman, I quite like all of the 90s Batman films.
Right.
But I quite like the 60s Batman TV series. Like, I like the bam, chapow, that type of.
Wow. Is that the one
puns.
with Eartha Kitt?
Yes. Yeah. Catwoman. Yeah.
I grew up watching those because, everything is very modern and connected at the moment. But, 25 years ago in South America, it was like, you're going to watch what people were watching 20 years ago.
And you're going to enjoy it.
and sis, we did.
I mean, the old Batman was amazing. And that I feel like this, like the Batman and Robin movie, which is hated by, literally everyone. Like George Clooney hates the fact that he was in it. Like everyone hates it, and I'm like, don't be so hard on it, because I think it was really funny. It had the puns of like the original series. It was camp. It was highly saturated, so visually it was very colourful as well. I don't know why. I absolutely love everything about it.
I feel like whatever you feel about it, it's still it's a fact that it's a prominent pillar of modern pop culture.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the question.
Yeah, but I feel like to other people it's interesting that people find that like to be like they would put that up there with like the Avatar movie as being awful. They people hate it.
Which one? Because they were both awful.
The Avatar. Sorry. I'll rephrase the Avatar movies as both of them. Yeah. No, yeah, like you know what I'm on about, the adaptation of the TV series. But yeah, like that type of it is up there with that. It is like considered.
I do agree with you that it's the hatred that is unfounded.
Yeah.
You can not like it, but I feel like the point of hating it is too much. But if you had to pick something you personally feel is a horrible example of geek culture recently, modern times.
Any sort of thing that has, like any American movie that has a geek in it, basically.
Yeah.
The skinny.
Or super fat.
Or yeah, like it's one like to the other. Never traditionally attractive, because they can never be attractive either. Or what is like, as in like, obviously beauty's in the eye of the beholder and everything, and ugly is just a perception. But what people would perceive as being attractive.
Well, you framed it perfectly well. What the American media would perceive as attractive or unattractive.
Yeah, or you see, like, I always hate the reveal as well of it's usually a female reveal or a man one, where it turns out that this one, if he wears nice clothes or loses weight or does anything, and they become acceptable. I hate that, and they're not geeks anymore either, because that's another thing. They have to forego anything they enjoyed to become acceptable. So they have to be different. I hate the reveal. I hate the change of a geek character to be in.
I hadn't thought about the reveal actually aspect of it now that you think about it. But I agree. It's I had already conceptualized that whole thing of, like you said, it's always presented as this like unlovable character. It's beyond fucking. It's unlovable. This person doesn't deserve human warmth because he's quote unquote in love with his toys.
Yeah, and it is that. It's like the general, like, and they're desperate as well. They're always perceived as incredibly desperate for sex as well.
Which is very ironic, considering that it is the traditional quote unquote pretty men that are the most desperate and insane when they look for people.
Literally.
Talking about that, you mentioned about the change. It's not super related to the change, but in a way it is. Queer Eye, the new series.
Yes, yeah.
There was this episode, I don't remember if it was the first or second season, that genuinely put me off of the series for a while, because no one talked about this, but there was this character, Jesus. This person, his guest, I don't know, the episode was focused on him, and he is this stand-up comedian. In his room, he has collectible, toy figurines or whatever, he likes it. And the five guys except Jonathan, because he's amazing and he's a nice person.
Yeah.
But the other four are like, oh, wow, this is why you don't get anyone. Oh my God, grow up. Oh my God, it's time to throw this out. Why?
Yeah.
Why is there this perception that being a geek and liking something geeky prevents you from finding human contact? In fact, I see all of these ripped, hot people constantly complaining about having a horrible dating life and zero human contact, and here I am doing a podcast about geekiness, about to celebrate 3 years married. So
you're doing all right.
Yeah. And my husband is eye candy. So it's wrong. It's not just wrong in the sense that it's wrong to judge people like that, but it's wrong because it's also not accurate.
Yeah, it does, and it fuels the stereotype that's already there, that's already believed, that's already accepted, which is the reason why it's a bit like with the Marvel movies now. There's an accepted level of being a geek.
Yes.
And that is that. You can be, you're good. Oh, you like the Marvel films? Oh, which ones are your favorite? What do you like? That's fine. That's completely fine to be enthusiastic about that, to a point, like I said before. But you're fine there, because you'll see anyone walking in. You see all different, which is actually great, because you're seeing all these like different people going in, But that isn't accurate either to what it is.
It's the fact that yes, you should enjoy these things, and yes, you should enjoy these new things that have become more mainstream. But just because this became mainstream doesn't mean that we should like vilify the things that didn't become mainstream.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And it is the core of what being a geek is about. Enjoy your thing. Don't rain on someone's parade. It's what we were talking about with the Batman and Robin thing, where you were mentioning how you love it. A lot of people don't. I don't particularly have like love for it, but I don't hate it.
Yeah.
And I also recognize and I also recognize that it's a huge part of popular culture. Uma Thurman's character and her portrayal and the visuals of Poison Ivy, well, her Poison Ivy, come up in so many other, popular culture elements. Like there was this Batman game where the Poison Ivy in this game is like you categorically took inspiration from Uma Thurman.
There you go.
And that's something we need to respect. Something, just because you don't like it doesn't mean that it's bad. However, one of these things about talking about the worst expressions of geek culture is when the commercial aspect of something ruins something. Yeah. Something geeky. And we were mentioning just now the Avatar, let's name it. M. Night Shyamalan's The Last Airbender movie.
Yes. Yeah.
That was terrible. And it's not just ruined by the commercial aspect of him getting it just to make money off of it. It's the fact that he also had this shadow of James Cameron being upset that when people say Avatar, they don't think about his Blue Pocahontas movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was crazy that they had to change the movie's title. The movie's already terrible, but it's crazy that they had to change the title to The Last Airbender because he couldn't have Avatar in it.
Imagine having that big of I don't know, like small dick energy. I don't even know, but being that like sensitive about something that you have to be like, but my movie.
Let's be real, Miss Cameron. The only good thing about the movie was that for the time, the visuals were insane.
Oh, absolutely.
And Sigourney Weaver.
I would also say Zoe Saldana, but you can't really see her, which is actually the crime.
That is the biggest crime of that movie, is underutilizing Zoe Saldana.
And that should be also said in Star Trek, and I'll just keep going because any film she's in, really.
Absolutely. She is such a good actress, and she's such a powerful force in anything. Like, this is the thing. This is what makes Avatar watchable. It's her.
Yeah.
And it's just her voice. It's literally just her voice. And, obviously it's modeled after her a little bit.
Yeah, they do with the spotty things, don't they?
Yeah. Motion capture. Like, here we are talking about these things, not knowing the terms.
Yeah, like they wear those suits where they have the dots on it and it makes them blue.
Ping pong. They stick the ping pong and
they move around and then they become things.
The computer does the thing.
Yeah, we go.
To be fair, for geeks, we have zero understanding of how this works.
We just like to enjoy it afterwards. We don't know about the work that goes into it.
Absolutely. We're the kind of people who would like eat but not cook.
Oh, absolutely. I'm definitely that.
Well, I mean, we are cooking slightly. We're creating content right now based on our love for geekiness, which is, again, going back to like one of the greatest thing about it, is like it's how it unites people.
Yeah.
Because I would say that when we for anyone listening, this is the first episode ever. Me and Holly went to uni together.
Mm-hmm.
And I am a gay man from South America, and she is something.
She's something else.
She is a category of itself. And I think that socially speaking, if we leave geekiness outside, I think the only thing that probably unites us is coffee.
Yeah. Can you imagine us sitting down and just having coffee? I wouldn't even know what we talk about.
No, we wouldn't be sitting down. We would hate.
Yeah.
We both hate those kind of situations.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
Like.
But this thing, like, we're obviously, we're in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, and we saw each other last about a week ago in the flesh. And the time just goes. I mean, obviously, everyone's time with their friends goes by quickly, but we have so much shit to talk about. That time goes, and even though we're doing these podcasts on the weekends, we still have stuff to talk about.
It has to, and we talk basically every day as well.
Yeah.
But when we met up and suddenly it was like what, almost 4 hours passed, and it's like, sorry.
Have to go. Although we have to be fair. We talk every day about like the daily annoyances of life.
Yes.
And then when we meet up, we actually talk about like, oh, this thing that I watched and this thing that I didn't watch, and how you still haven't watched Black Sails. Yeah, I love how you proudly said how, oh my God, you introduced me to Battlestar Galactica and the Allies of Locke Lamora, and it's been like 3 years.
I can't stress it enough. I watched the first series. I love the first series. I don't know why. That's it. I don't know where I went. I don't know why I ended it there.
If you don't, I'm okay if you don't like it. Like I'm perfectly fine if you come back to me and say, you know what, not my thing. I just cannot understand it because because it's the kind of thing like you love Battlestar Galactica, and for me, the way that I describe Black Sails to people who've also watched Battlestar Galactica is that Black Sails is BSG with pirates.
Yeah, that's how you described it to me. Although at the time, whenever you wanted me to watch or read anything, you would say it's like Battlestar Galactica, but with, and then you'd insert like pirates. Yeah, something.
It's one of the reasons why I have I think this is an important thing of geek culture as well, loyalty.
Yeah.
I feel like geeks are so loyal to something. Like I will watch any trash that has a Battlestar Galactica actor in it.
Right.
It's why I started watching Lucifer.
I knew it. When you said any trash that has, I was like, he's going to mention Lucifer.
Okay, listen. What we said before. If you love it, that's fantastic. That's the point of it. You should do what you enjoy. I don't particularly love it. Lucifer's and that's the weirdest thing, because what's his name again? Tom Ellis.
Yeah.
Tom Ellis is so sexy, so hot when he's not Lucifer.
Him as a man, he was in a British TV show called Miranda that I absolutely adored. So I was really excited that he was going to be in this like Lucifer, this program. And then I don't understand how a man who has literally the default voice of like what you'd assume a posh English Lucifer would sound like, and then he's put some voice on to play Lucifer. I don't understand that.
If you're really American and you're listening to this, that is not a British accent.
No.
It's very upsetting, and he is so sexy. Also, I think he shaves a little bit for it, and I'm like, that's for me. It's like, no, thank you.
No, he has a bit of stubble normally, as well.
Well, I mean the chest.
Oh, right, yeah, he should he has to, because he's
because it's America, and you have to sort of show the six pack and all of that. But anyway, Tricia Helfer, number 6, is in that show, and I gobbled that. Like, and her character is like, oh my God, it's not bad, but they could have done so much more with that paragon of acting skills.
Yeah, they didn't use her to her full capability. Surprise, surprise.
Exactly. What kind of shows have you watched that you've categorically started watching it just because of that, of like geek loyalty?
Probably there's a show called Major Crimes that has Mary McDonnell in it.
Oh my God, yes.
So obviously
President Laura Roslin. Exactly. Call her by her real name.
So it was Mary McDonnell when she's at home. Yeah, so President Roslin's in it. And actually in that as well, spoiler, but her character dies really sadly and suddenly. Oh, no. And it's awful as well. And you just sort of like, I think she's doomed, because in Independence Day she dies.
Well, she does an amazing job at dying though.
Oh, she like literally in like at dying. So like the prolonged pain of somebody who's slowly dying, she does it so well.
It says this from the very beginning. She's the dying leader. She's supposed to be dying the entire series, and she does it so well. On my end, another show that I think I've watched because of loyalty, and to bring back the point of Black Sails. In Black Sails, one of the main characters is Toby Stephens, which is, by the way, Maggie Smith's son, Professor McGonagall.
Yes, yeah.
Oh my God, you tell? He is so sexy. I have a weakness for gingers, and he's just you didn't know. You were at my wedding, and he's insanely good in Black Sails.
I mean, from the first season that I saw, the only season I saw, yes, he is very good.
He's amazing. And then he's been recently doing Lost in Space, the Netflix remake.
Yeah.
And the show genuinely gives me anxiety because these people cannot go to the bathroom and pee without the bathroom floating in space and them having to re-rig the toilet as a spaceship or they'll die.
So it's like constant then.
Literally, it's like, Mary, remember, if you stop peeing, you'll freeze to death.
Oh, Jesus.
But he's in it.
So you watch it?
Oh my God, do I watch it? Oh, it's amazing. Well, it's not that great. It's visually amazing. Sci-fi wise, if you're a sci-fi fan, I highly recommend Lost in Space. It's beautiful. The way that they trap you into like the alien environment or whatever, it's very nice. But let's try to end, the episode on a very, very good note. What are geeky things that you're looking forward to, especially now that we're in the middle of this pandemic and we would like to have something good to look forward to?
I want it to be like the next Gentleman Bastard book would be great, but I'm not holding out for a miracle, am I? I'm just...
The thing about books that always lets you know what isn't happening is that books tend to be so promoted. Like it's 6, 7, 8 months before the actual release. They're like, listen, it's coming. Please buy it.
Yeah.
And we have heard zilch.
And wasn't it meant to come out like last year? Well, it's meant to be come out like almost every year.
Yeah.
Doing around about the same time, and it's never happened.
Yeah. So
I'm sort of like pretending like that doesn't exist. Just pushing that.
I personally don't. I know we said you should be talking about positive things.
And then I instantly go to a sad, but it's not existing.
But I personally don't think that's going to come out this year because it's a physical book. It's not even an ebook release. So it's how do you promote this? I mean, obviously you can buy it off Amazon.
Yeah.
But I think the publishing industry is so focused on like, launching dates and launching parties and all these things, and you can't have that.
No, it'll have to be next year, just so they can get the money.
Yeah, everything has to be next year. I am personally looking forward to, like, massively to the Avatar live action series.
Yes, not
the film. And M. Night Shyamalan is not whitewashing this.
Nope.
It's been made by Netflix, and it's the same creators, the same writers, the same choreographer, the same composer. It's gonna be good.
It's gonna be so good. I hope, but I assume it's just gonna be amazing.
I just think it's not gonna be. At least it's not gonna be bad.
Yeah, it might. It's a hard one to reenact potentially. Like it's potentially hard to redo because people are very loyal to the animated series and everything. But at the same time, I don't know. I think it's gonna look really good. I think they weren't even casting. They were like looking for costume designers and set design, and the detail that these people put into it makes me feel like it's going to be beautiful. It is. It's going to be really good.
And I'm actually, I'm actually looking forward to Wonder Woman.
Oh yeah.
The sequel.
I almost I know it hasn't come out, but my brain sort of registered as, even though I haven't seen it, it's been out for months. Sorry, Oliver. Of course, yeah, it hasn't because the corona.
The Miss Rona. And I feel like Wonder Woman, and more specifically Gal Gadot, is the best thing that the DC universe has.
It's the only good thing.
Yeah.
I am like predominantly, if I was to go DC or Marvel, I've always been more of a DC fan. Like I've always, again, my heart has been always for Batman. So it's been consistently disappointing, apart from her.
Oh, she's amazing in it. She makes you believe she's this demi-goddess that knows much more than you.
It's because she probably is.
She probably is. I always remember this Kate McKinnon. Is that her name, Kate McKinnon?
Saturday Night Live?
Saturday Night Live, yeah. I remember this interview that she had where apparently after someone hosts Saturday Night Live, then the whole cast goes to dinner with them. And Kate McKinnon was saying that it was just this like religious experience sitting at a table talking to Gal Gadot. And I'm like, I can see it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God. I don't know if I could do it.
Me neither. I think that must be the worst expression of my geekiness. I cannot meet any of these people.
Yeah. I say the people that I see meeting like celebrities that I love. And they've got like a list, they got pictures of their like meeting them. And I was like, how do you have the bravery to do that?
Yeah, I don't want to inconvenience them.
Yeah, even if even at a convention, it's like, oh no, they've got enough photo ops to do.
Absolutely.
And I'm gonna look terrible in mine. So either that or
next to these, legends.
And then I'm like, And you can't take a new picture because you know that one's going to be shit, but that's it. That's all you've got. And you're going to keep it because it's them. Oh, no thanks.
You just described geek culture. Thank you so much for doing this podcast with me. And if you all enjoyed this, remember to, I assume, subscribe. I don't know how it's called on your app. Obviously, this is going to be all in all the podcast apps. Subscribe, like, rate if it's good. If it's not good, yes, you can still rate us badly, but maybe like send it to my email and I will apologize personally.
You'll get a personalized video of an apology.
Sending you, I am so sorry that I said that Robin and Batman and Uma Thurman were good.
I'm not sorry. I will never apologize.
And on that note, see you next week.
Hi, my name is John. You can find us on Twitter as @HSGoblins, Instagram as Hyperspace Goblins, and you can contact us as hyperspacegoblins@gmail.com. Thanks for listening to our podcast.